At this point, we can project Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States, winning what had been expected, of course, to be a razor-tight and historic race.
In 2024, Donald Trump won the US election in what the media portrayed as a complete landslide for the Republican Party. But at the time, I had some questions. How was it a complete landslide when he won just 51.3% of the national vote? Well, to answer that question, we must first understand how the US handled their presidential election. The electoral system is a winner-takes-all system in which the candidate with the most votes in a district or state receives all the representation there, regardless of how narrow the margin was. For the US, instead of it being one national winner-takes-all contest, it is 51 separate winner-takes-all contests. A candidate does not need to win the national popular vote by a wide margin to win the presidency. Instead, they just need to win a sufficient number of individual state contests, even narrowly, especially in the swing states that determine the outcome. Through this system, while it seems like all 51 states have a say in who will be the president, the outcome for most states is already predicted and expected, with the Deep South and the Midwest of the US being Republican and the populated coastal states being Democrats. Thus, normally, there would be a small number of swing states that would ultimately decide the election due to people being unable to predict whether they would turn left or right. The 2024 results are a near-perfect illustration of this amplification effect. Trump's electoral victory was built mainly on 6 swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that he flipped from the 2020 results. Several of these were won by extremely thin margins: Wisconsin by less than 1 point, about 29,000 votes, Michigan by roughly 1.4 points, about 80,000 votes, and Pennsylvania, the tipping point state, by about 1.7 points, roughly 120,000 votes. Analysts have stated that if Harris had won a combined shift of only 230,000 votes across Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, she would have won the Electoral College outright, despite losing the national popular vote by roughly the same margin Trump actually won it by. In other words, an election that was won by over 2 million votes nationally in the Electoral College is decided on a swing of a few 100,000 votes concentrated in just 3 states. Because the winner-takes-all system award 100% of a state electoral seat to the winner of that state regardless of the margin, these narrow state-level wins accumulated into an electoral vote count that looks one-sided even though the underlying voter coalition was almost evenly split. Trump's 312 against 226 electoral college victory, 58% of the electoral votes, obscured the fact that nationally more Americans voted for someone other than Trump than those who voted for him. This system clearly does not show or represent what the people of America want, but this system has been in place since the founding of the US, and it seems unlikely that it will change anytime soon. This gap between vote share and power share has real political consequences beyond the immediate result. Political scientists who study it point out that large seat or electoral margins are frequently interpreted by the winning side or by the media as a quote-unquote mandate for bold policy action, even when the underlying vote was closely divided. In 2024, this dynamic played out visibly. Despite winning by the 5th smallest popular vote margin of any victorious candidate since 1900, the size of the Electoral College win encouraged framing of the result as an emphatic, broad-based endorsement. With the Electoral College system, voters are encouraged to vote for the 2 main parties. If they spend their vote on a third independent party or do not participate in the voting at all, it would feel as if their vote are being wasted, and so this system makes the voter want to vote for the lesser evil of the 2 parties, even though they don't agree with them. In doing so, hoping that the party that they vote for will win over the party that they hate the most. Overall, we can see how a small, narrow win in the popular vote can translate into a big landslide win in the electoral system. We can also see the severe consequences of having a system like this in place, with voters being restricted on their choice, and in doing so, we can only question, is this system right for America, the supposed beacon of freedom of the world? That question is for current and future Americans to answer and to decide on what to do with their country.